Hey kids, do you like wrestling? Well, we like wrestling too. We are Shake Them Ropes here on the Voices of Wrestling Podcasting Network. Myself and Chris Novembrino kind of doing a lazy river of wrestling criticism, going through the news and whatever happened in stateside television wrestling. And also, you know what? Sometimes we just like to watch old stuff and talk about that too. Love for you to give us a listen. If you haven't already, we are Shake Them Ropes here on the Voices of Wrestling Podcasting Network.
This podcast is a member of the Voices of Wrestling Podcasting Network. Visit voicesofwrestling.com to hear the rest of our great podcasts, as well as show reviews, columns, opinions, and updates across the world of wrestling.
Hello and welcome back to another episode of Days of Thunder, the WCW Thunder rewatch podcast that you didn't ask for, but we did anyway. Brought to you as part of the Voices of Wrestling Podcast Network and powered by alargemanappears.com. I am your host, Stagger Lee Malone, and as you can tell from the description on your feed, we are still in the special edition era of Days of Thunder. And what a special edition this truly is, as I am joined tonight by one of my favourite people, not just in wrestling, but also in all of Ireland, as I am joined by the one and the only Alan 4L, Alan Coonahan. Alan, how are you?
Well, Lee, we are the nation, alive and in colour. Don't diss the man or we'll bum rush your mother.
You're just giving away all the good stuff right at the start of the show, Alan.
That's the message I just want to convey to our listeners here.
Yeah, God, it's been a while since I've recorded with you, Alan. I think it's coming up on 2 years, maybe, since I've done a show with you.
Yeah, it feels like about that. It is. Yeah,
I was going to say time is such a flat circle. Like
hang on, it's not. It's not. I was thinking. It's far less. See, it's being a parent like you are, Lee. It just distorts your sense of time. It was just over a year ago. It was February because you did my February What's on the Telly podcast over on Alan 4L's Pro Wrestling Paradise at PW Torch at VIP.com.
Oh, I did. That's right. Oh my
God! It was the February one. I knew that was but I was thinking, God, that was hardly 2 years ago. But it was February 2024, so it's just over a year.
I genuinely forgot all about that because I was thinking the last time we recorded was the 5-star match game with the episode about Bret Hart.
We did an episode about Bret as well as because we did our 34L30 about Bret, and that was.
We did.
I think you did a 5-star match game. The 5-star. I think you're confused. I don't think I was on the 5-star match game.
Ooh.
Was I? Maybe
I think you were because it was me, myself, yourself, and Griffin. Because you robbed me.
Yeah, I won, didn't I? I like winning 5-star match game. I like winning 5-star match game.
You did.
I like winning the Joe Gagney a Christmas draft. Yeah, I like winning things that Joe Gagney is involved in. Maybe I'm going to show up at one of his Joe Gagney Cito's swimming races and beat him, snatch the gold medal. You know, us Irish are great swimmers now. After Olympic success, maybe I'll add to that. Move over Mona McSharry, Alan 4L's here.
I'd pay to watch that.
Annual.
Yeah, no, this is your first time on Days of Thunder. This is a show so long in the making. Definitely more than 2 years. We had planned to record probably going back so long, it could have been like even pre-pandemic. It was that long ago.
It was
But
right smack in the early days of the pandemic, and I was so bored, Lee, even though we didn't actually set a date to record, I just went ahead and just did the show anyway, and just was wondering if you and Dave might call in just by chance as I was doing. So I did a full solo show about Yuji Nagata, and what I'd do was I would like review the matches, and I'd go, any thoughts, Lee? Any thoughts, Dave? And you guys would say nothing because you weren't
just
there.
dead audio. Yeah.
Yeah, it was very sad, the pandemic. We all went a little bit crazy, so I just recorded a show with Pretend Dave. And at one point, I got really bored, and I just started doing accents and pretending to be you guys. And that wasn't really good either. But I put the show out. No one listened to it. I didn't promote it very hard, but yeah, it's out there if anyone wants to dig into the archives. It's really well hidden on PW Church VIP. You have to actually dig between Pro Wrestling Focus radio shows that Paul Heyman called in to in like 1993, and shows where Jesse Ventura was talking about how he was going to run for local government in like 1994. If you somewhere in the midst of them in the PW Torch or archives, you'll find my my show with Fake Dave and Fake Lee.
I hope fake Lee did not say anything too cancelable.
Well, everyone was
yeah.
getting cancelled in those days, Lee. You might have recovered by
now. But we are here to talk about two men that are. I'm gonna assume they're cancelled today, Alan, because they're mid-90s wrestlers, so they have.
You
to
see,
have done
this is typical. Poor Wolfie D, for literally his whole life just getting tarnished with the brush that is Jamie Dundee. It's a poor man. You can, if you've ever listened to a shoot interview, anything with Wolfie D, that poor, long-suffering individual just getting tarnished with the same brush is very much like who was the other tag team like that? It was it was Crime Time. Shad, God rest his soul, wasn't exactly got a lot of heat early days in the WWE locker room, and JTG, who was apparently by all regard didn't put a foot wrong, was constantly getting heat because of Shad. Heat by proxy, they called it. And Wolfie D, I think he had to throw hands many a time because of his partner. But
Well, they
probably
definitely
as well. He probably knows that route.
They definitely had heat for me with the longest time, because the whole premise of the show was I reached out to yourself when I was trying to find hosts to fill in for Dave while Dave is off, doing his new daddy duties. And
as if that takes any effort. Dave's just Dawson.
Oh, listen, I said it on my solo show on the Patreon. I actually popped in and saw Dave, baby, and mother, and they're all doing well. Dave has taken to fatherhood very well. So no, he look, it's taking a bit of work.
Was there any doubt? I heard on one he seemed to have a bit of doubt and a bit of worry, and I could tell you didn't have any doubt, Lee. You were fairly certain things would be all right.
Yeah, I knew he'd be fine. And he's never going to listen to this, so I'll never actually put him over when he's here. So
what?
But yeah, so when I reached out to yourself, the whole premise was that we were going to do a show that we would call Pick Your Poison. Though traditionally, myself and Dave would reach out to a special host, and we'd ask the host to select somebody that would be on the WCW roster of the time, and then we'd all pick 2 or 3 matches. We'd sit down, watch them, discuss them, have a general chit chat about said wrestler or tag team, and that would be fine. Except when I reached out to you,
you were expecting that like I might reprise the Yuji Nagata suggestion, or maybe I'd find some hidden Hiroki Goto WCW appearance and we could discuss some Goto matches. There might be like something like that.
I was expecting maybe a Shima or a Tokyo Magnum or something along those lines. But no, you stunned me with your selection. As everyone that's listening can see, it was in fact PG-13, and it really stumped me because you weren't aware of this, but I am not a PG-13 fan. To the point of, I said to you, I wouldn't be able to pick 2 matches to best encapsulate PG-13 and what their career was. So you decided very quickly, I will add, like within like maybe 30 minutes, you had a full playlist written up in a lovely document with links, I should add. So Alan seemingly had this ready to go.
I
Full
just
of
dropped
links.
whatever. I just dropped whatever the fuck I was doing, and I was like, I am convincing Lee because this is bullshit. This PG-13 disrespect. I was stunned because you say you're stunned. I was stunned because I made that suggestion and I was waiting for the response of, oh, awesome, great suggestion. I love it. PG-13. This is gonna be so fun. And you were just like, oh, I fucking hate PG-13. Are you sure you want to do this? And I was like, oh. And then I hyped myself up by actually finding stuff, and I was like, yeah, I'm sure. We're fucking doing it, Lee. Did I curse on Days of
So,
Thunder? I can't
of
remember.
course, we curse all the time. It's fine.
You,
This is
you
VOW.
do, don't you?
They're,
You do. You watch WCW Thunder. Of course you
yeah,
curse.
we
What am I
have
talking
we
about?
have to. I mean, this is the VOW podcast network. Everybody curses. There's no standards
You,
here.
you curse out you curse out Cadbury's double decker bars, and I still haven't forgiven you.
Listen, I've done it once and I'll do it again. But so we're coming into this with the idea of you have made up this playlist, I will say, a pretty extensive playlist.
Yeah, I
And
didn't go hard on like. Trust me, I didn't have specific PG-13 matches either in my head, but I knew I'd be able to pull together between interviews, angles, some breezy TV matches, and then a couple of like longer matches. I knew I'd be able to put together a little pack that, even if we don't go through each bit of it in detail, it at least provides us a good basis of conversation about sort of what PG-13 were all about.
So, is there a way you'd like to look at these? Do you want to take them in bunches? Like, there's one feud that I think is fairly well covered from the
Yeah,
USWA.
I think the order I kind of have it in the list is a good order to go
Okay.
through. I think it kind of has it in sort of sections, and yeah, I think that works somewhat chronologically. But before we kind of get into the bit by bit of it, what was your like? I want to know more about this preconceived opinion that Lee Malone has about PG-13. How was it formed? What is your familiarity level with them? Have they come up on Days of Thunder previously, in episodes maybe that I haven't heard or something where you guys have buried them? I need to know some Lee PG-13 history, or is this just blind hatred?
It's definitely not blind hatred. I won't say there's very few people in wrestling I blindly hate. That's just not true. But they definitely have appeared in WCW, and I've definitely kind of not been a fan of their work. I would be mostly aware of them from the little bits of work I'd seen from Memphis. Like, I have not done like a chronological rewatch of like any era they'd be in. So I've only seen bits here and there. Obviously, I know them from their WWF work, the Nation work and stuff like that. But I don't know where it came from. I think it was their maybe one or two appearances they've had while we've been doing the show, and I just was not a fan. And there's no big kind of overarching reason for that. It's just when you suggest it, I was like, God, I just couldn't think of like, oh yeah, this is a classic PG-13 match I've seen, and definitely something I could sit down and talk about.
I thought so. I'm not exactly familiar with when they come into WCW, and I assumed that their WCW appearances were after the time period you guys are currently in. So, when were they on? Like, what was their
I'd have to
earliest
look.
appearance?
I'd have to look that up. Hang on, I pull up the cage match.
Because I didn't put any WCW. I didn't even seek out any WCW because I was like, well, you guys are going to talk about it when. But I also wasn't sure. I would have thought they did more Saturday Night than Thunder as well. So I wasn't even sure if you would get to them if they even did the Thunder. But apparently they've already done a couple, and you guys have talked about it. And it sounds like it wasn't good.
So I'm looking up. Hang on. Okay, have we seen them on our run? Yes. So. Oh no, I am wrong. I am definitely wrong. They do not show up. Oh no, I'm right. No, I am right. Sorry, we're in 2000. Yeah, so they have a match versus. Well, now look, this may not be their fault.
Was the frog involved?
No, PG-13 versus the new varsity club, Mike Rotunda and Rick Steiner from
Come on
December
now.
of 1999.
Oh, jeez,
If I
I'd say Rick Steiner battered poor Jamie. Did
I
he?
was just going to say, if I remember that match correctly, Rick Steiner was in full-on fuck you mode, which he was in
Yeah,
for
Wolfie
most.
probably had to fight. Wolfie probably had to fight for his buddy, as he often did. I'd say on that night.
They have a couple of matches on Nitro as well, but I don't think we saw those. 4th of January
The
on
six
Thunder.
man with the Frog versus Tree Count, which was on an episode of Saturday Night that we did on What's on the Telly, on an episode I did with Tom Green last year. That was the one WCW match of theirs I've seen.
Okay, so that was their last appearance in WCW. That's the 11th of April 2000. The other match we have definitely seen, so I was correct. It's 2 matches we've seen on there, and there are only 2 Thunder matches. We won't see them ever again. Is Tree Count defeating the team of PG-13 and Chavo Guerrero in 91 seconds.
Okay, so they did a few go rounds with Tree Count. Yeah, interesting. Okay, so like I'd say, like, for me it's kind of similar in terms of my exposure, but just maybe a bit more. Like I had never gone through a whole big PWG or PWG PG-13 rewatch or anything like that. And like you, the eras of Memphis, I would have actually done a good bit of watching of. Has never been any. Oddly enough, like the one era of Memphis I have actually gone through weekly is an era which isn't exactly the most celebrated, but it's like um 87 after the big Austin Idol Paul Heyman every run, the whole run where they like break Jerry Lawler's balls and all that. That's like really famous and really heralded. I pick up after that,
I was just
and
going to say, so you watched post the most
yeah,
celebrated feud in Memphis
yeah,
history.
I watch post this really celebrated feud. I watch when my main man Big Bubba, not to be confused with the Big Boss Man, but to be confused with the Tugboat, the Typhoon, the Fred Ottman in his Big
Oh,
Bubba gimmick. I picked up there dancing Big Bubba with his boombox classic stuff, and yeah, I watched right through every week of 87 into 88 with the Midnight Rockers drunk and high off their fucking tits every Saturday morning in the TV studio, like literally coming from the bars to the TV studio until they got fired a month later. So all of that. Mark Goulin with the fellow that came out of the sea. I forget his name. That brilliant skit. All the 88 stuff, and I stopped at the end of 88. So that's the era of Memphis. Young Scott Steiner winning the local car dealerships, like big never ending round robin tournament that went on for about 3 months. That's all the stuff I've seen, and then just bits and pieces otherwise. But I'd seen bits and pieces of what PG-13 had done in the 90s, kind of in the post-peak era, and I'd seen a lot of their ECW stuff, which made tape, which isn't hard because not a ton of it made tape. But what did
Mhm.
made an impact on me, I know their ECW stuff. Rob Naylor is a big proponent of, and he turned me on to that a long time ago. So yeah, I would have seen some of their stuff in ECW ages back and got a kick out of that. So yeah, that's about it really for me. But I was just always got a kick out of him. Oh, and I listened to all the Jamie Dundee shoot interviews in like 2007 and thought they were the maddest things ever because I was like 22, and he was like just and I'm blind than every other pro wrestler that ever existed. The only thing they paled in comparison to were the shoot interviews of another Memphis legend, Brickhouse Brown. He was the shoot interview king, for sure in that era.
Well, I won't surprise you considering my not being a fan of theirs. I've never actually listened to a Jamie Dundee shoot interview, but I can only imagine the things he would say. But I'm not going to run down everything we have on the list here. I will put the full list in the show notes. We won't have links for everything, but anything I do have a link for, I will put in the show notes. Some of the other stuff should be easy enough to find, would it be, Alan? Like, I know
I think easy
most
enough.
of it is out
Yeah.
there. Yeah.
Yeah, if you scour around YouTube, or if people are have certain access to certain drives and stuff now. If maybe their
Mm-hmm.
friends have good drives with catalogs of things, if you have friends in high places, you might know where to look. But uh, yeah, it's we got an eclectic mix here. There's a million PG-13 videos on YouTube, and obviously, honestly, I just picked a couple of random things in some cases here. So there's there's other stuff out there that could be like better than some of the stuff we're going to talk about today, and more representative of them. Yeah, there's loads and loads out there to get a flavor of what PG-13 we're all about.
Oh, that we have on the playlist is the PG-13 rap video, their introduction to the USWA, I believe.
Yeah.
Um,
This was
so
very young Jamie and Wolfie D, and so Jamie Dundee had been around Memphis or JC Ice, shall I say, had been around
hmm.
Memphis in his um, original form of young Jamie Dundee, the son of local area legend Bill Dundee. And he had been in some pretty famous angles and stuff like that in like the late 80s, like when he was like 15, 16 years old. Um, and yeah, he trained to be a wrestler, and he kind of gets reintroduced here with what I was surprised to know was brand new to wrestling. Wolfie D,
Oh,
Kelly Wolf
okay.
being his real name, and he was literally just friend of Jamie, I guess, and trained to be a wrestler, and kind of they put together, and this was him starting out in the business. And both were very much representative of early 90s culture, I think, in certain parts of America. And they were the Wolfie was he was the more, I think, skilled vocalist in terms of their rap work, and more talented in terms of that. And I believe he wrote all their material, including the classic material on this here intro rap video, which is something else. But yeah, it's very a lot of these Memphis videos that we would see throughout the 80s and early 90s, like you hear the stories about them kind of being shot in Jerry Jarrett's backyard and stuff like the original Kamala videos where he's in
Hmm.
the jungles of Uganda. It was just somewhere on Jerry Jarrett's ranch, and they were just filming it with a camera. Like I spoke with the Mark Gouline video on the beach, or like these things were pretty rinky dink, and like this was the Memphis rinky dink version of like an early 90s hip hop video. So you can imagine what it would look like.
Um, but yeah, I think it's a nice little introduction, and I fully agree with you that JC is a much worse rapper than Wolfie, and I must say Wolfie is not good. um,
JC Ice thinks he's amazing.
oh yeah, 100%. Now I have to say, as we get through the playlists, JC absolutely shines in one aspect that I will keep coming back to, but yeah, no, he is definitely not a rapper. Do you want, like, I didn't take huge notes on the actual rap video. Like, you obviously
No,
think it
no,
was pretty
I've got
great,
nothing
but
else to say about it. I just wanted to throw it in because I thought you needed to see it. I thought we couldn't talk PG-13 without seeing their origin story over the course of 2.5 minutes here.
so the first matchup we have is JC Ice, actually in singles action. I think it's our only singles match on the playlist. It's JC
We
Ice
get two singles matches in one kind of here, don't we?
Well, yeah, it's also not really much of a singles match. It's
It's
more of
a
a
Memphis
handicap match.
television match.
But it's JC Ice and Wolfie. They come out and they're talking about how they turned on their TV the other night on Monday nights, and were watching the WWF, and they saw this little guy that's smaller than them, and everyone gives them shit for being small, and they were talking about this stick man that was showing up on TV, pinning Razor Ramon and pinning Ted DiBiase. And they were, calling him out. And would you know it, Alan? The 1-2-3 kid just happens to be in Memphis that Saturday.
I hear he can hula hoop through a Cheerio. Lee. Did you hear that? Did you hear?
I did. I did hear that. That
Jamie
was
was
good.
Jamie was trying to get that joke over like Bischoff with the scissors deal. It was like
Mm-hmm.
repeating the joke over and over. But, yeah. One Two Three Kid, classic early 123 Kid. His gear still says L.Kid on it.
Yeah.
Absolutely love it. Vintage. He should have never changed that gear. It was the best. But yeah, he just happens to be backstage and he interrupts. So we're seeing like the early version of PG-13 here, where they're just loudmouth youngsters, running their mouth and just being little pricks, and they're very good at it,
Mm-hmm.
particularly Jamie Dundee. And their chemistry that they have, just kind of their roles within the team, even in this very early stage, you can see it. And this is probably just what they were like in real life. That Jamie is the shit stirrer, loudmouth, and Wolfie he's the bigger of the two, and he's probably the better fighter of the two. And he's probably gonna, he's gonna stand up for his buddy, and he's gonna shit talk when his buddy shit talks. But it's it'll be always Jamie Dundee writing the checks that Wolfie has to cash essentially, and that's really exactly what we see here. 123 Kid comes out, and is I forget whether it was Lance or Dave doing the interview, but they're like, "Hey, look at this, the 123 Kid, great to have you here." And 123 Kid's like, "Yeah, well, jolly gosh, gee, I'm just pink to be here in Memphis in front of these great fans." Like 36 rowdy fans in the TV studio on a Saturday morning. And yeah, he is the babyface promo, and he's like talking about. Oh yeah, I liked that. Jamie Dundee was like running through his matches, no chef, and he was like, Razor Ramon, he got beat by him. Clearly, he was drunk, and then we watched him against. Then we watched him against Damien Amento, and Damien Demento, he must have been drunk too. But then this is what really confused us, because he wrestled the $1 Million Man. And we know Ted DiBiase. We know him.
I like that. We personally know that he doesn't drink.
Yeah, he doesn't drink. So we're like, what is going on that this guy's beating these guys? So, and they say that if they beat the 123 Kid, then that makes them better than Razor Ramon, Damien the Mensa. No, it doesn't even say it makes them better. He says that means we beat them. We
Yeah.
beat you, that we also have beaten them. So with just reasonable logic, I think.
Who knew Jamie Dundee was a big fan of the lineal title, idea? But
Yes,
yeah, no,
indeed.
look,
MMA math, as they call it.
I enjoyed this. I thought this was a fun little kind of just a little showcase for kids. He just comes in, kicks Jamie's ass for maybe 30 seconds.
It's so good.
He gets thrown out of the ring, and then Wolfie comes in and kind of beats on Kid for a couple of seconds. And to my amazement, Wolfie actually tries a spin kick.
It looks awesome.
It did. It really did.
Wolfie's super athletic. So this is you can tell Wolfie is just a really good athlete. And so I might mention this a couple of times, but Wolfie, does Wolfie remind you of anyone just in his manner, his look, how he kind of gets bigger during his career, and just his movements around the ring? Is there anyone that he reminds you of at all?
There's nobody that would come instantly to mind.
It's also, the person I'm speaking of is Jay Briscoe. He really reminds me of Jay Briscoe, and yeah, it's Jay obviously was that supernatural athlete, and was you could see he was an athlete even when he was young and skinny, and that's what you kind of see here from Wolfie. But I just thought this was just classic Memphis TV wrestling. The whole segment's on YouTube if anyone wants to check it out. It's really, really good classic Memphis wrestling, where you just see shit talking, Lance and Dave being like, "Come on," and just a baby, good honest baby face, a couple of annoying heels, and then just really fast-paced, hot action that's in and out really quickly, while the crowd are just screaming non-stop during it. What more do you want from Memphis television?
And then you get babyface Jeff Jarrett coming in to make the save.
Yeah. What did they...
PG-13. What did they call him? The fabulous one, Jeff Jarrett?
That was it. The fabulous one. Yeah. He runs in and it was like, oh, look at this. It's the fabulous one. And I was like, that's Jeff Jarrett. What are you talking about? Oh, yeah.
I don't remember the fabulous one era of Jeff Jarrett.
No. Yeah, I didn't either, but he was getting ready to pack his bags for WF at
Can I
this point.
say on the video that we had, Richard Lee comes out to cut a promo after the segment with PG-13 and kids, and Richard Lee was fired up. He could have hell of a promo on Bear Apprentice.
He did indeed. Yeah, there are some people in Memphis that you'd never hear of in any other walk of life in pro wrestling who like were like sneaky awesome promos or did great work, and yeah, so that was
But
a
yeah,
nice little intro to the
it
PG-13 as
was.
heels, but like what we're about to get into is an era of their career where they just become super popular because it's the early 90s. You know, uh, what was cool in the 80s to the fans of Memphis, maybe and some of the local legends, might be a less hip and stuff now in 93. And
Mhm.
the fans of today, they were starting to dig this PG-13 act, and very soon they would become basically the top baby faces in the territory. So you get a couple of years of them as baby faces, and I suppose that's what our next couple of things that we have to talk about kind of all have to do with.
Yeah, so the first match is from 1994. There's not an exact date on it, but it's PG-13 versus the Eliminators. I wasn't aware that the Eliminators had a Memphis run.
They did, and I know of it because I've heard. I'm not sure if it was Saturn himself telling these stories or if it's someone else talking about it on his behalf, but apparently, like, so people may or not be aware, but Cronus was, from all accounts, Saturn was very much the leader of the team. Cronus,
Mm-hmm.
he struggled in a lot of ways, in the pro wrestling business, and a lot of stuff kind of had to be done for him, and Saturn essentially, and this was early in his career, and Saturn had to like just hold him by the hand during this Memphis run because I guess Cronus had like in going down there, Saturn just bullshitted about like how much experience Cronus actually had. He essentially hadn't really been trained yet, and it was just Saturn kind of telling him what to do, and Cronus just being such an incredible natural athlete that he was able to do everything, and Saturn just directing traffic, and that was kind of what had our whole Memphis kind of run basically went. It was just Saturn just pulling the strings, and Cronus just being the freak of an athlete that he was, being able to do everything.
That doesn't surprise me in the least that one, Memphis would hire this guy with very little experience. Obviously, they were bullshit, but I'm sure they kind of knew also. But two, I just can't imagine Cronus anywhere other than ECW. Like, I've only ever seen Cronus in ECW to this point, and it's one of those, mind fucks where you're just like, seeing him in any other setting is just so odd to me. But yeah, so this is our first introduction to babyface PG-13, and let me tell you, the fans were right behind them here. Like, they get a hell of a lot of support in this match, and like, this is one thing with the Eliminators. I think the Eliminators they're a great heel tag team. They just, even this early, it's easy to tell like they just got it. Like, whether it was Saturn just leading it all and he got it, but they were just great dickhead heels, I thought.
Yeah, this is probably so I remember the first time I ever saw the Eliminators wrestle was their Barely Legal match with the Dudleys, the opener of Barely
Mm-hmm.
Legal. And I remember watching it and being like, this is cool, but this is really different. I hadn't seen, this might have been one of the first ECW shows I ever saw, and I was like, this is weird. different. I don't really understand it, and I didn't understand what was different about it and why, but I was also liking it. What was different about it was my first time, Lee, ever seeing a completely unhinged spot fest in a pro wrestling ring. There was no psychology whatsoever. It was literally just one spot after another. And I saw many more Eliminators matches just like that, which were just a collection of cool moves, with Joey Styles like saying, just whatever move names he had made up for all these different things. And yeah, this match is like the first time I've ever seen the Eliminators in like a structured traditional tag match. They were awesome in it.
Yeah, they
They were
really were.
really good. Saturn was just a machine in there, like just fantastic. And this is where you get to see the PG-13. If you're someone that just knows them as kind of annoying, scuzzy little heels, they could be great baby faces and had that crowd behind them all the way. And yeah, the action is good in this. It's like it's the shine. It's good and intense during the heat. PG-13 are selling. And Eliminators are just totally relentless, beating them down, and then you get a cool little finishing stretch. I love the whole no water in the pool gimmick where everyone did top rope dives and they all missed, and then that leads into the finish. Yeah, real good stuff, and I thought both teams shined a lot here. I really enjoyed this match.
Yeah, fully agree with you. I actually thought I had a blast watching this, and I love that. If there's one thing we'll see through all these matches is that PG-13, they brought a gimmick to the ring and they made sure to use their gimmick. They use that hubcap so much, but here, they're the faces. They're the faces here, so they only use it once for the finish. And they get
this match had commentary, which was one of the few sort of longer matches we saw here which had commentary, and the commentators were doing the whole thing, which was classic for a team like PG-13, where you're like, they make no bones about it. They'll do whatever it takes to win. If they need to use that trash can, they will. And but like, sort of, it's like when it's your trusted babyface announcer kind of excusing them for that, then you as a fan think, all right, that's all right. And yeah,
and it's that thing of when you're seeing JC in there against somebody like Saturn, and like Saturn looks like he's made out of fucking rock, like he's just carved. Oh my god! And then you see JC in there, and you're like, yeah, let him use a weapon, it's okay. But even after the bell here, the Eliminators destroyed them both with the hubcaps, and PG-13 guys hit a bit of a juicer, which for a post-show angle, it was like, damn, they should have got juice in the match. It looked great.
yeah, and they could, as we'll see, like Jamie Dundee he gets a lot of sympathy from the crowd, and it makes sense. I mean, like it's early 90s wrestling, and he's a guy who'd be small by the standards of any era and any promotion. And Wolfie D gets bigger, gets on the gas as his career goes on. I'm sure Jamie Dundee was on the gas at points, but just for the fun of it, probably. But like I doubt he had like a great workout regimen or anything like that. Like he was always small, he was always skinny, just no real. Yeah, he was just. Uh, but like he would get so much sympathy from the crowd when they do a heavy heat angle with him as a babyface. It worked really well.
And then our next 4 videos are all linked. It's all one feud in the USWA. So it's PG-13 against Tommy Rich and Doug Gilbert. Now, this was obviously a pretty heated feud. Our first video is a promo from Tommy Rich, Doug Gilbert, and their manager, Scott Bowden. I don't know much about Scott Bowden. Alan, do you know much about Bowden?
Actually, he sadly passed away a couple of years ago, maybe during the pandemic, I think it was. He had he did a lot of like podcasting and writing and stuff like that with various people that would kind of be I suppose I'd say kind of like in our circle, so to speak. So like he
Mm-hmm.
would have done a fair bit of stuff with Chris Zellner, on like Exile on Bad Streets, going through Memphis history and stuff like that back a couple
Oh,
of
I
years
did hear
back.
them. That's right. Yeah, yes, I did. So
Yeah,
I'd listened to them. Yeah.
that's Scott, and he did like a lot of Memphis history stuff. But when he was young, he was in there as a heel manager, basically playing this rich kid. He was tremendous. Any bit I've seen of his work there, he was so good. He was basically, his gimmick was that there was like a rich part of town in
Mm-hmm.
Memphis, and he was supposedly from there, and he had rich parents that sent him to a fancy college and this kind of thing. And yeah, he
You
was.
could you can tell from listening to his cadence, he was a big fan of Jimmy Hart. He had
Yeah.
like that Jimmy Hart kind of heel manager style down to a T. I thought, definitely somebody that I think in another like era of wrestling could have been a much bigger deal.
Germantown, Tennessee. It's a city in Shelby County, Tennessee. Um, and yeah, it was given a Malcolm Baldridge National Quality Award for Performance Excellence in 2019. Yeah, there you go. Such a lovely area that the regulars of the Memphis TV studio absolutely hated Scott Bowden just for being from that area.
But yeah, so we get Bowden coming out and talking about people from the wrong side of the tracks, and Tommy Rich taking shots at the crowd, taking shots at PG-13. He says Bill Dundee was a legend in this area, but Jamie Dundee isn't even half the man his father was. Then we get him taking some shots at Wolfie D's mother. I think he talks about how Wolfie D could go down to the corner and not know who his father was. It could be any number of men. This kind of stuff, and then Doug takes a shot at Jamie's mom again. Called, I think, wasn't she shaved bald in an angle in like the
Yeah.
late 80s? He takes a shot at Jamie's bald mother, and that's what brings out PG-13. They've had enough. They can't listen to anymore. We get a big brawl. Yeah, just classic Memphis TV angle.
Lee, how familiar are you with why it's never good to have um Doug Gilbert taking shots at you in promos? Not the man you want taking a shot at you in a promo. Do you know why?
Is Doug Gilbert renowned for walking out of promotions and getting very shooty on promos?
He is renowned for getting very shooty on promos. Him and my personal favorite example is when Eddie Gilbert had this really good gig going in Wing in Japan,
Mm-hmm.
and I think he was
I
working
know
as
this
like
story,
a
but yeah.
booker, and Doug was involved. Anyway, Doug was there. There was some whole thing where Doug was aggrieved, and Doug was like basically like he was going to march out into the middle of the ring, Cork and Hall, take off his mask. He had a mask gimmick to take off his mask and cut a shoot promo and talk about how he was going to All Japan or something like that. And Eddie was like, "All right, well, fine. I guess I'm going out to do it with you," and burned the bridge completely. But I think the more famous example is the um Memphis Saturday morning. So picture the scene: Memphis Saturday morning, studio full of kids and their parents and whatnot. And, this is mid-90s, so maybe a year or two after certain things had been in the news. And Doug Gilbert, while cutting a promo on Jerry Lawler, comes back to the microphone as Lance Russell's pulling it away because Doug's getting a little too fired up. And then he says the immortal words of, "Jerry Lawler has sex with little kitties."
Jesus
And
Christ.
yep, Doug Gilbert did not hold back. So yeah, I think if he's just insulting your mom in a promo, he could and has done worse.
Yeah, I wasn't aware of that exact Doug Gilbert promo, but I've definitely heard the stories and seen videos here and there of Doug getting a little out of control, shall we say? But yeah, no, I thought this was just a classic Memphis angle and a good way to set up this feud. Well, obviously this feud had already been ongoing, but this added a nice little bit of heat for the couple of videos we have to come. So we get another promo from later on in that same show. It's Wolfie and Jamie coming out, and Jamie says, or Wolfie said, this is Kelly Wolf. You're talking about my mom. I am from the streets. I am Kelly Wolf, and Kelly Wolf is Wolfie D. And if you're talking shit about one, you're talking shit about the other. And basically, I thought a very real and kind of emotional promo from Wolfie that I wasn't expecting.
Yeah, Wolfie was not the skilled orator that Jamie was, and like this isn't like an incredible promo
Oh,
because he's not, but like he was so passionate here, like it's very clear that this is as good as he's gonna get as a promo. Like this was the best version of a Wolfie D promo. It clearly meant a lot to him. He was trying to get across a certain vibe in the promo, and he tried really hard with that. And I think he did a pretty good job of it. But then,
definitely.
as would often be the case, he was outshined. I think by his partner, who comes in with he's normally got as a heel or a baby face. Jamie Dundee, JC Ice has always just got such a shit-eating kind of look on his face, and he was deathly serious as he steps up to the microphone here, cold eyes, and it was like it's before he even said a word, it was like he had your attention,
Mm-hmm.
and he just cuts one hell of a promo talking about, yeah, I'm Bill Dundee is my daddy. Yeah, I was brought up a little rich kid, but I didn't get no. I didn't. Nothing came easy to me because Bill Dundee told me you ain't gonna get nothing for free in this life. So anything I had to get, I had to work for. I had to steal. And
I like that. I like that he threw that in. I had to steal.
yeah. And then he goes, and he goes, is my mother is the greatest or the most beautiful thing on earth or something like that. And he says, why? Because she gave birth to me. Which was just a tremendous line. And then he has the closing line of the whole deal, which was like the walk-off mic drop of the promo as the crowd go nuts. It was, let me make sure I get this right. Um, you can beat my kids or you can kick my dog, but if you ever talk about my mama again, you're a dead man.
I was just like, excuse me? Alan, as a father, I have to say, of all the things you can say to me, insulting my mother may be the least of those three things.
Well, clearly your mother must not be the finest creature on God's green earth like Jamie Dundee's because she gave birth to him
oh, what a line!
on this Mother's Day here in Ireland.
I was dumbfounded. I was just like, man. I mean, a classic wrestling promo. Don't get me wrong. Like you said, before he even speaks, you see it in the eyes, as Lanza will always say. You can tell by the eyes. The eyes never lie. But you want to talk about a closing line for a promo? I will never forget that one.
I had to rewind it the first time I watched it. I was like, wait, did he say what I think he said? So I was like,
Brilliant.
it was like the kick my dog. As I was focused on that, I was like, wait, what did he just say before that? Did he say what I think he did? But yeah, so good, so good.
So
And
that
yeah,
sets
so that
that sets us up for our first match in this series. PG-13 taking on Tommy Rich and Doug Gilbert. So PG-13 come out to cut a promo. Wolfie apologizes for offending people last week, which would have been that kind of fired up promo. I'm not sure how he would have offended anybody. I didn't find anything offensive in what he said.
Maybe Jamie's words, offensive to people who like to not have their kids get beaten up.
I mean, that's
people
possible.
who are protective of their dog, animal rights lover. Maybe that. Maybe Wolfie just because Wolfie was so fired up himself, like emotionally, to do that promo. Maybe he kind of assumed he crossed the line, even though he really didn't.
Or again, it might be just a reflexive action that Wolfie has spent years already apologizing for Jamie, that he's just doing it preemptively. But Bowden comes out and he's desperate to get a title match with PG-13 for his guys. Otherwise, Rich and Gilbert have said they're going to fire him. So he's doing his best to get a title match. He offers them money. God, what else has he offered them? I think he ridiculous. There's a couple of things he offers them. Eventually,
he offers them a Mercedes.
A Mercedes, yeah.
The first thing was the money, and the lads no-sold that pretty quick. He offered them $1,000, and they were like, "We don't need your money." And then he was like, "Oh, it's got a new Mercedes," and Jamie was like, maybe he needed the little like driving motion with his hand out in front of him and like slapping Wolfie, like maybe. And Wolfie was like, "Nah, and then they're like, "Okay, we don't need your car." And then he offered his hair, and they were like, "You're ugly as it is. Who cares if we take your hair?" Which was a good line.
So then he says, look, if they beat Rich and Gilbert, he'll leave the USWA for good. So that's what he gets them to buy it on. They say, okay, yeah, that's good. And like within seconds, Rich and Gilbert hit the ring in their street clothes, which I thought was a great added bit. And this was just a wild brawl for the most part. This was really good. Like it was
brawl.
It was that kind of good chaos. I thought the near fall, Bowden has a football helmet that he brings to the ring. He misfires and hits Tommy Rich with it, and it gets a near fall. But as there's like chaos going on all around the place, Tommy Rich has removed his boot because don't forget, he's in his street clothes. He has his boots on, and he takes off his boot and clocks Jamie with it and gets a pin. And we have new USWA tag champs. Like I said, I really enjoyed this. Just only a couple of minutes long, but just again, I'll keep saying it. It's that classic kind of Memphis TV style that we don't have here in there's nothing quite like it in 2025.
The thing I've seen, or the thing I've felt when I've watched early 90s Memphis is that a lot of people kind of disregard that era of Memphis because you'd think Memphis to peak is kind of like the 80s. There's a couple different sections of the 80s. It's like really good, really famous stuff. And they were drawing really big, like really successful. Every Monday, Mid-South Coliseum would be rocking, sold out. The 90s, that business kind of dropped quite a bit. And actually, PG-13 were one of the things to kind of keep it afloat. They were basically the thing keeping the USWA's head above water. But the actual TV, because of the setting, because it's the TV studio, and like it's not really all that lesser than the 80s stuff, because you're gonna have the same amount of people in the studio regardless. It's not like they were drawing like if they're at their peak, they would have only ever had like 40 people in that room, I'd imagine, because like it's so small. And like I've never felt there was any less, or there was any less of an atmosphere. It's the same atmosphere. It's like maybe not as good of performers as you had at times in the 80s. Maybe the promos weren't as incredible, but like there's still a lot of really fun stuff. Like I've watched people like young Brian Christopher. He was fantastic in that era. Young Jeff Jarrett before he left. Lawler was always knocking about and still kind of being Jerry Lawler, and you'd have different people. Like you'd have legends coming back in, or you'd have young guys passing through, and there was always interesting stuff. Whenever I've gone and watched any 90s USWA, I've enjoyed what I've seen. That's kind of represented here because you've got a mix of the youth and the experience in Tommy Rich, and the crowd are going nuts for it all.
And that's one thing I find with any Memphis that you want to watch. Like you could put on an episode from 1982 with Jerry Lawler and whoever on top, and then you could put on an episode from 1995, and the formula is going to be pretty similar. They really locked in that kind of TV format and built to that weekly Monday show in the Coliseum, and it never really changed. But like for a 40-minute show, I feel like it always worked. And like I say, it's something that like I've never gone back and done a deep rewatch of any specific era, but I've seen a lot of TV scattered across the years. And it's almost a comfort watching, like, you're going to put it on and you know what you're going to get. And yeah, sometimes the promos aren't going to be good. And sometimes the squash matches are going to be rough. And, sometimes Dave and Lance might look a little bored. But then, sometimes you're going to get a match like this with 4 pretty, locked in, good performers. And then sometimes you're going to get a promo like, Josh LeDuc, where he's fucking slicing his arm open. It was one of those things. It was always a kind of a lucky bag, kind of lucky dip kind of thing with Memphis. You just never knew what you were going to get. And yeah, no, I quite enjoyed this for what it was.
But
And
I greatly enjoyed more the next segment, and the final thing we'll talk about from this feud.
Yeah, so this is the kind of the climax of our highlights of this feud. So it's steel cage match from the Coliseum. It's PG-13 taking on Tommy Rich and Doug Gilbert. It's kind of the closing stretch. It's not so much highlights. It's more the closing stretch from the cage match.
Which is what you'd get a lot, is where they'd show on the weekly TV, they'd show some clips of something that happened at the arena, whether it was the Memphis Coliseum or the Mid-South Coliseum or the venue in Evansville or wherever it might have been. They'd often show you these kind of shorter clipped versions of some of these matches, and then it would be like while the guy was kind of standing with Lance and Dave, and then he'd react and cut his promo about what we just saw. So that's kind of what we're dealing with here. So not a full match here.
But yeah, the highlights from, or the kind of closing stretches that we did see, to your point, I think the crowd sounded really hot. Like, we can't see, the lights are kind of down, and we can't see exactly how many are there. But, it doesn't sound like, an empty cavernous arena. The crowd sounds hot. They're half match. We see it's the classic Memphis cage that, it's the Hell in a Cell style cage where it surrounds the ringside area as well as the ring. So there's a little bit of room for the guys to work outside of the ring. The first thing to really stand out was Wolfie kind of doing an axe handle off the cage to the floor outside the ring. Finish of the match.
The first thing that stands out to me is just that it's absolutely the most chaotic scene. We got very quickly into the clips. We're seeing Mama D, Wolfie's mother, referenced earlier in the feud. In any other promotion, I'd be like, I assume this was some actress playing Wolfie's mother. In Memphis, I'm like 99.999% sure this was actually Wolfie's mother, and they convinced her to. This is the same promotion that Bill Dundee convinced his wife to shave her head from losing a hair match. So yeah, this was for sure Wolfie's mother, and this was for sure Wolfie's father. And we have to talk about Wolfie D's father, Lee.
Okay, tell me about Wolfie D's father.
I compared Wolfie D earlier to Jay Briscoe, and another similar thing that these two men have in common is that their fathers, Papa Briscoe and Papa Wolfie D, are absolute units of men who I would assume it would take 20 men to take Papa Briscoe off his feet in a brawl, and we saw here that it would take 20 men to take Wolfie D's father off his feet. Not just to take him off his feet, but to stop him marching forward towards his intended goal. Because this absolute brick shithouse was, I believe, not smartened up here, and I think he was just fighting and
intent to get in that cage.
Intent to get into that cage to save his boy. And like, did you hear, like, he was throwing something over or something and he was like screaming the ring. He's like, Wolfie, grab this. But did you notice, like, at times when guys were like holding the mags, he was like throwing these like shoot headbutts and stuff. There was a couple of really gnarly moments where he just is clocking dudes and guys are hitting him full on the back and he's just not registering it. He was a mountain of his man. And like, Lance was on commentary, and I can't remember what he said exactly, but he has some great line to describe him. He's like, he's a big, strong gunner, tall drink of water, this fella, or something like that. And He was just a unit, and like he eventually makes it in, even though he's been held back by all these people. He just charges forward. He gets in there
I think
eventually.
he's the one that makes save at the end.
Yeah, yeah. Him
He's
and
the
a
first
couple
guy in the
others get
ring.
in.
Yeah,
He's the first guy.
yeah.
And did you notice, Lee? Did you notice this popped me huge? This was like the coup de grace for me of why this man ruled and stole the show here. Did you notice how he got in the ring?
He just burst through the door, didn't he? He ripped the
Yeah.
door open.
And then he got in the actual ring, Lee. He Kevin Nashed into the ring. Over the top.
Oh, did he?
Yeah. There's other people going through like the ropes the normal way. And like, often you'll see non-wrestlers going to get into a ring and they'll not be kind of sure how to do it. And they'll be kind of apprehensive. And sometimes people who will go down between the bottom and the middle rope, and it kind of looks awkward if no one's holding the rope open for you. Wolfie kind of had that, or Wolfie's dad kind of has that moment of like, he doesn't know how to get into a ring, but it's like it doesn't last. Like you don't even barely notice him. He was like, well, I'm just stepping over all these ropes and fucking marching forward. It was fantastic. It's not like he's big, but he's not like a 7-footer. But he is fucking huge, and he gets into the ring like a 7-footer over that top rope. Fuck it.
Am I mistaken? First of all, we'll just say PG-13 win after Wolfie's dad tosses in something to him. It's like some kind of foreign object that Wolfie hits one of the guys with to get probably. But what I want to ask is, am I mistaken, or did Lance Russell say Gorgeous George is in the cage?
Yeah, Gorgeous George, the your WCW hero, not the Macho Man's valet, the other Gorgeous George, the what's his name in WCW?
The actual, the grandson, Gorgeous George III. Or he got
the rights to the
grandson or the great grandson. Isn't that what he always said? And
something
that's how
like
he had the rights to the gimmick.
He was a bit of a worry. I used like my early internet days, like super early, like 2000, 2001, when I'm just figuring out there's wrestling stuff on the internet. I used to read columns on NoDQ.com, or maybe it was called the Mayhem.com. I think that was the original name. And there was columns by The Stro, and that was the Maestro / Gorgeous George. I used to read them every week. He was quite the I think he did Cole Cabana's podcast one time way back when that was a big thing.
Oh, okay.
Interesting character. But yeah, that was him here.
But yeah, so there's your tenuous connection to actual Days of Thunder. As Gorgeous George is in here. We see Tommy Rich pile driving JC Ice through a table. So there's like a big angle after the actual match itself. So the heels kind of beat down on PG-13, and we see Tommy Rich pile driving JC through a table. Classic throwback to the original. The innovators of the table spot, obviously in Memphis. And yeah, there's a huge brawl, and then like Alan said, Wolfie's dad is the one that leads the charge of the baby faces into the ring. And eventually we see JC getting stretchered out. And that's kind of the close of our kind of USWA feud. And I gotta say, this was pretty hot.
Yeah, so this was an example of seeing them, as in a local feud as the baby faces on the baby face side of the equation, and kind of this is kind of their rise to popularity, so to speak. And so going into this with your preconceived idea of what PG-13 kind of offered as a total package, I would assume this is kind of giving you at least a bit of, they had a few more bows to their, or strings to their bow than you initially thought.
Yeah, look, I'll save my overall thoughts for the close, but yeah, no, definitely being been impressed with what I've seen this far. Definitely, absolutely there. And
I can tell that you're more impressed or more taken aback by the connection that the crowd had to them as baby faces than you would have probably expected.
I wasn't expecting them to be so over as baby faces for sure. Yeah, so we go from this hot USWA feud into something totally different, as we see a Monday Night Raw match from 1995. It's the Smoking Guns taking on the USWA Tag Team Champions, PG-13. And I'm going to assume that I saw this match back in the day. Because much like yourself, I was raised on a healthy diet of WWF as a child growing up. So I'm almost certain I would have seen this at some point. But this coming off the fiery babyfaces that we had just seen fighting, those dastardly heels, Tommy Rich and Doug Gilbert. You now see Wolfie D and especially JC Ice, I feel like, back in his element as a kind of shit-talking, braggadocious heel is quite the kind of reversal of fortunes here. I thought this was a great bit of fun seeing the kind of smaller heels get their comeuppance against the much larger Smoking Guns here. What did you think of this match, Alan?
I thought a couple of things. So, first of all, I think for most people who have any awareness of PG-13, if you ask them to close their eyes and kind of visualize what they think of when they think of PG-13, this is what they visualize. It's exactly as you described. This is, I think, what people most know PG-13 as, and yeah, they're fantastic here. I don't think I've seen many matches where the Smoking Guns looked as much of a force as they looked here. And they had plenty of great squash matches, especially in '93. But they had a couple of years more polish at this point, and they were able to take full advantage of how willing and how effective PG-13 were at making the guns look good, but also, and sign of great workers, the ability to get over themselves whilst all about making the other team look good. They were just, they PG-13 did so many things to put over the guns that also put them over in a sneaky, clever way as well. So they were fantastic. I loved the karate displays that we saw from JC Ice and the reaction of the Smoking Guns. I think it was Billy. Another thing always has to be mentioned whenever you watch a Smoking Guns match of this era. How is young Billy Gunn? How is he like literally half the size of modern like 60-year-old grandfather Billy Gunn? Like
I
it
know, it's
doesn't.
crazy, isn't it?
It's crazy to see how that man's physique changed over the course of like it happened so gradually, but at the same time so suddenly. It was just one day. It was like surely you had the point that I did, Lee, where one day you were just like, Billy Gunn's huge now. When did this happen?
For me, I think it was the when he showed up in New Japan, and I was like, how is Billy Gunn so much bigger than everybody else?
Yeah, that was kind of like another layer of it. But I mean, there was the like within the '90s, like there was like the point where it was like when he was in DX, it was like you kind of like were like, he didn't look like this when he was in the Smoking Guns, and he did not.
See, I always just thought he was another kind of big guy amongst the big guys, but then it's like when you see him out of the context of being surrounded by other 6 foot plus guys that are fucking full of stuff that we can't talk about. It's when you see him out of the context of that you really go, holy shit, that man is huge.
Yeah, he was always tall. But Jesus, he was so much skinnier in this era than he would be. Well, I was gonna say than he would become
Just a couple
than
of
he
years.
is now.
Yeah. I will say I do think one of the best spots on this whole playlist is when Jamie does the cartwheel into the lariat. Like you say, he does his little karate display, and he just does a full-on cartwheel, and I think it's Bart just takes his head off with a lariat. It's incredible, and it's really like, look at these doofuses.
Yeah, and you had was it Vince and Lawler on commentary? Yeah, it was Lawler because
Mhm.
Lawler was kind of putting them over because he obviously knew them so well, and he was like, "I know these guys, man," and they made it a title match, didn't they? Like they were saying last minute they made it a title match or something
Oh
like
yeah,
that.
the Guns were WWF Tag Team Champions, and it was supposed to be a non-title match, but they made it a title match at the last minute or something like that.
Yeah,
One thing I do want to talk about, because we're not going to talk about on the rest of this show, is the Guns finish is always great. I love that the side slam leg drop combo. Even
yeah.
now, if a team busted that out, I'd love it.
Side slam leg drop was awesome. I think they called it a sidewinder or something like that. But yeah, that ruled,
That's what
and
it
that
was.
was a
Yeah.
very effective replacement for their previous finisher, which I am assuming they were told, lads, you can't do this to people. It's absolutely murderous. Do you know the move I'm talking about? That was the original Smoking Guns squash match finisher.
Ooh, mate, what was it?
But Irish whip the guy, Billy say, would give them a high back body drop, and Bart would catch the mid back body drop and pile driver them.
No,
It
Alan.
was,
I do not know that move.
yeah,
My God.
yeah. It's up there with the other lads. Are you
The-
sure
the-
you want to do this and you can do this without murdering this poor enhancement talent who does this once a month, Frank Maloney or whatever this jobber's name might be? Are you sure you want to do this move safely without murdering poor Frank here? The Shaker Heights Spike of the
Like Height
Beverly
Spike, yeah.
Brothers.
Oh my
You
God.
know that one?
No, it's a classic.
Your
Um,
boy, of
yeah,
course, in
my boy,
involved
yeah, my
in
boy.
that. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Your boy
Uh,
Wayne Bloom.
Obviously, that's who we're talking about.
Yes,
Wayne the
yes,
Train.
yeah. Um,
um,
great
but yeah,
powerlifter in his day. Um,
but God,
the
yeah,
uh,
no,
the,
I do love that sign wider. It's a great finish, and more teams should be using it even now.
yeah, yeah.
But yeah, just
Anything that involves that kind of backbreaker, I'm all for. Like the demolition, decapitation,
mhm.
the Heart Foundation deal that they did. Just yeah,
Now
so easy, so simple. Looks great.
I'm not going to blame any wrestler that doesn't want to jump off the top rope and land on their tailbone. So it's easy for me to say somebody should be doing it.
Yeah, yeah,
Nobody
yeah.
wants to end
Top
up
rope.
like Psychosis.
Yeah, or Bobby Eaton. Apparently, late
Mhm.
days Bobby Eaton. That hip wasn't doing too good. But
But yeah, no, a total change of pace. And now our next match is again something totally different, as we're going to Smoky Mountain Wrestling Volunteer Slam number 4 from the 19th of May, 1995. Um, yeah, so this is Tracy Smothers and the Dirty White Boy, who are very much the hometown team here.
yeah, because this will tie into the next match I think we have here as well.
Hmm.
But this is part of the USWA versus Smoky Mountain Wrestling interpromotional feud, where you would see, as with other classic interpromotional feuds, you would see um, one team or one side and as the heels in one area and as the baby faces in their own area and vice versa. So PG-13 were perfect guys for this feud representing USWA because they were of course able to go to the Smoky Mountains region of Tennessee, and they were able to play up their usual heel shtick and be absolutely despised. And then they were able to be at home and be the beloved flag bearers for USWA and vice versa with the guys on the other side of the war. And it was so regional as well. It honestly, probably the best comparison you could make to this feud. Very much a different part of the country, but similar kind of deal was the Philadelphia split that you had in the ROH CZW feud. Just
Hmm.
super local, just very territorial, so to speak. And yeah, they it was this is a feud that I want to see a lot more of. Anything I've seen, I've been really entertained. Of course, Tracy Smothers and Dirty White Boy around this time were a part of the Thugs. T is for trouble. T is for trouble, and you would mess it up. T is for trouble. H is for hell. U is for ugly, and G is for jail. Why, Lee? Because a thug can't spell. Um, yeah, it was. They were great, and they were full-on baby faces here. You,
Mm-hmm.
of course, because this was 1995 in the South, you had the dirty white boy accusing Jamie Dundee of being, shall we say, a little bit light in the loafers, Lee, to use the
Mm-hmm.
parlance of the day, and then mocking what one might look like if they were to strut around the ring a little bit light in the loafers. And Jamie Dundee, of course, was having none of this accusation, and he would be consoled in an embrace by Wolfie D, and then the crowd would, of course, chant things because the South.
Yes, definitely words that we cannot repeat that the crowd were chanting at PG-13 here.
Yeah,
But
but that
it,
sets the vibe for just like kind of the
it
hostile atmosphere that PG-13 were in and were playing up to.
it's the next, so it's our next three matches that encapsulate this kind of USWA versus Smoky Mountain feud, and it's kind of like this match in particular. I think this match is probably the longest of the ones that we see, and it's like as we kind of close out the last couple of matches, you do start to see some tropes that PG-13 really do enjoy, like the Jamie loves doing the crybaby spot, and
Yep.
it always gets a reaction, like a heel reaction from the crowd. Um, and like you say, like they're doing the embrace and they're kind of playing up to the chants, shall we say, and kind of doing a few kind of, I don't want to call them gay panic spots, but that's kind of what they were.
Subtle
But
versions
yeah,
of it, I suppose, for the
yeah,
time.
and but like this match in particular, there's one spot that I was just like, my God, like the reaction that this gets. So Tracy gets one of, I think it's JC, into the corner and tags in White Boy, and they do a double arm wringer, bring it back, a double chop, and the crowd, you would swear that Steve Austin in 1999 just showed up, because the pop for a double chop, like I was just like, my God, this crowd is, you want to talk about invested in a product, just
Yep.
popping for nearly everything. It was great. Like I sound like, I'm kind of being dismissive, but it's absolutely amazing to watch. Like when you consider some of the crowds we have to put up with in modern wrestling.
And these guys just knew how to play those crowds
Mm-hmm.
like a fiddle. I mean, guys like Tony Anthony, Tracy Smothers, like all it took was 10 years, 5, 10 years in the business in that environment, and you were like basically had a PhD in knowing how to
Yeah.
orchestrate a crowd, and they sure did.
Like there
Just the
was no
environment, the veterans you had to learn from, the amount of reps you got, the crowds you got to work in front of. You either got really good at this or you just got pacified. And guys like these four, like in there, and particularly because look, PG-13 are still relatively new at this point, and especially compared to Smothers and White Boy,
White
who
Boy.
are
Mm-hmm.
seasoned territory wrestlers, seasoned television performers. Smothers has had his WCW run at this point. Like he's had like that classic pay-per-view match with the Southern Boys versus it was the Midnight Express versus Southern Boys.
Midnight's it.
Um,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, like the Wrestle Warrior 90, I think, match. Like Tracy Smothers is like he is in his prime here, and like a
Mm-hmm.
big show like Volunteer Slam, a heated feud. Yeah, this is great stuff. And yeah,
Can
just
can I throw something out to you here, Alan?
yep.
Every time I see Dirty White Boy in kind of like a Smoky Mountain or somewhere of that ilk, do you know who he reminds me of a lot?
Who's
And I
that?
don't know, maybe it's just me. It's Michael Hayes.
Ooh,
I, I,
interesting.
I don't know what it is, whether it's the movements, the manner, I don't know, but I just see, when I see Tony Anthony, I just see a lot of Michael Hayes.
Yeah, that's an interesting one. I'm gonna keep that in mind next time I'm watching either of them. Really, that's an interesting shout.
But yeah, look, like this match, there's no kind of massive bumps. There's no kind of insane action. It's just four solid wrestlers. Again, something we don't get enough of in modern wrestling. It's just 4 good wrestlers going in there, listening to a crowd, and giving that crowd what they want. And it's like PG-13, because this is their show. I think they are just incredible here as the stooging heels. I just think they just are feeding off this crowd. Like you say, like Tracy's in his element, but I do think the two lads are like top notch here as just roiling up this crowd and just doing an incredible job of building to the finish. So the USWA tag titles are actually on the line in this match. We should add. PG-13 said they put up the titles, since they're coming into this lesser company, I suppose they'd probably call it. And so we have, what's the Memphis guy that's at ringside? The commissioner, or not commissioner, like he's one of the owners.
Oh, Randy Hales?
Was it Hales that was at ringside? I don't know if it was Hales or was one of the other ones.
I watched this one a couple of weeks ago, so I can't remember exactly. But
yeah, no. So they have a Memphis official at ringside, and there's, as usual, a bit of chaos at the finish, and Smothers and
I know Randy Hales was involved a lot in the feud, and they would do heavy heat. They did a really heavy heat angle with Randy Hales, which is referenced in the next video we're gonna watch. So it was probably him, unless it was the old guy. I forget the old guy's name.
Was it Eddie Marlin?
Eddie Marlin.
I think it was Eddie Marlin that was ringside.
Yeah.
But yeah, so we get a little bit of chaos. Smothers and Dirty White Boy get the win after some hubcap shots by Tracy. Obviously Mark Curtis is the referee. I think it was Mark Curtis that was the referee. Marlon sticks his nose in, says, no, not having this. There was, weapon shots, and the referee changes his decision, and PG-13 keep their titles by DQ, and we get loud, like very loud bullshit chants, which kind of amazed me considering the part of the country they were in. I wasn't expecting that from the Smoky Mountain crowd.
Yeah, and then we get the role reversal in the next match.
So you had messaged me earlier in the week after I'm assuming you had watched this match.
Yeah.
And I actually watched this match last because I purposely said, this must be pretty damn good. So this is PG-13 taking on the Rock and Roll Express. Now, bear in mind, I came into watching this not knowing it was part of the USWA Smoky Mountain feud. And right off the bat, we're getting heel rock and rolls in Memphis. And I was like, okay, this is good.
Brian Hildebrand, Mark Curtis, the most, Lee, you've been following wrestling as long as I have, and I'm sure you read Mick Foley's book, Have a Nice Day, around the time it came out, because that was such a big deal for us at that time. And that was my first exposure to the name Mark Curtis, and he was spoken of with reverence in that book, and literally every other time in the last 25 years I've heard his name mentioned since I read that book, it's always been with reverence. He might have a case for being one of the most beloved people in the history of the wrestling business, pound for pound, and you would never think that he had this kind of a heel in him. He was such an utter prick here, and we can't even hear a lot of what he's saying over on the. Sadly, a lot of the audio on this isn't that audible, but just his body language alone, he is. And I have had the benefit of seeing some other promos he cut during this feud, and he is an unbelievable heel. That is just a man with just such incredible pro wrestling instincts. If he was like, well, I was going to say a couple inches, but really, if he was like, he needed to probably be a foot taller and about 150 pounds heavier, and obviously not have the health problems that he ended up having. If he had all that luck going for him, he would have been one of the biggest stars in the business, because I think few people in that era had the mind for wrestling that he did, and it's no surprise that he was able to be such an effective referee, an effective a guy in the office and the booking in Smoky Mountain, and an effective heel performer as the stooging heel referee manager, I suppose, of the Smoky Mountain side when they would come down to Memphis. And him and the Rock and Rolls, they were on fire here as soul heels in the middle of Memphis.
Just on your point about Hildebrand, I know I've heard Cornette in the past talk about how like he was such a great help in the office, and as like you said, as part of the booking, and Cornette genuinely believed that he couldn't have done Smoky Mountain if he didn't have Hildebrand with him to help, and that like even people that knew him were just like blown away by his heel work during this feud, because they were just like, God damn, like if this guy, like you said, if this guy was just a little bit taller and a little bit, built into his body, like, it just could have been an all-timer of a guy. And like you said, just absolutely beloved by anyone that knew him.
And one of the best shooters in wrestling history, as we saw when the fan hit the ring on that episode of Nitro.
Absolutely, yeah. And that's another reason why the boys loved him as well. But yeah, God, just so sad that he had the health issues that he had.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and you can tell what he meant to so many people because of the era of like coming off the Monday Night Wars, still in the Monday Night Wars in 2000. There was a Brian Hildebrand memorial show that was run by Les Thatcher, Shane Douglas, and Cody Hawk. Very famous. I'm sure you heard about it at the time, like I did, and it was so famous because it featured WWF and WCW performers on the same show, and in the same matches, I think, even in some cases. And it was the show where, basically, like, which got Steven Regal his job with the WWF after all his drug problems in WCW.
It's what got him rehired after the Real Man's Man run.
Yeah.
That was where he proved he was cleaned up. He had that incredible match with Benoit.
Yeah, and that showed just how much like all that water was let go under the bridge just because people respected no one was pulling any shit at the last minute or pulling people from shit. No, it was just allowed to go ahead and honor this guy that everyone respected, which was really cool. But I have sorry, go ahead, Lee.
No, go on. Tell me what you have there.
I have to get in the vibes of what we're talking about here. I have this match going on in the background. I know I gave you a link that wouldn't be accessible to everyone, but it is actually on YouTube. I have just seen it on YouTube as well, so you'll be able to link people to this. But yeah, I'm like watching like I'll let you talk about some of your favorites of, but like at the moment, like on my screen, Ricky Morton is like he's fidgeting with his hands to get powder, and now he's got a chain going. Every heel
So to go back to my original point of you had message saying, this is, you can't wait to talk about this match, I believe is what your message said, and I was like, oh, okay, I'm gonna keep this one for last. So again, I turned on and we're getting heel rock and rolls, and I was like, oh, okay, I've heard about this. I've never seen the heel rock and rolls. I'm into this.
They're heels because Robert's got the ponytail going.
And like straight away we get sassy Lance Russell, which he's taking shots at Bobby Eaton and at Ricky Morton, and talking about they're going to get theirs or whatever, and PG-13 sneak in from the back, and instead of going right for the rock and rolls, oh no, they just beat the ever-loving shit out of Mark Curtis for the first 90 seconds to the point that he has to be carried to the back. And they say, as you alluded to, that was for Randy Hales. They made a promise to Randy Hales that they would kick his ass. So now that they've done that, now they're going to concentrate on the rock and rolls. And yeah, this match was, I believe they call
just
it
on the Randy Hales thing. So the reason they were getting revenge for Randy Hales was they had done a heat angle leading up to this, which there's a few clips from Wolfie D as a podcast I didn't know about until today when I was doing some research, and he has some clips on YouTube, and he's got one where he's interviewing Ricky Morton, who's just like, I have no plans to interview any wrestlers ever again for audio. I've done my time with that. But if I was ever given an opportunity to interview Ricky Morton, I would bite anyone's hand off her, because oh my god, that man is just what I would just love to spend a day listening to him tell stories. But anyway, I wouldn't even care if half of them were exaggerated or flat out lies. It's just one of the best storytellers in wrestling history. But
You want to hear how they went into a territory and it was on his ass, and by the time they left, they're hanging from the rafters.
Absolutely, I want the whole story. I want all the high spots. But if you haven't seen him on AEW a couple of weeks ago, unbelievable.
Oh,
Him
brilliant!
and Robert,
Yeah.
it's absolutely amazing. But uh, Robert just, Robert just threw the powder in the most hilarious dickish way I've ever seen anyone throw powder in wrestling. It was fantastic. But yeah, so they did this angle beforehand, and they tell the story, which again, this is probably exaggerated, but they got so much heat on PG-13 and Randy, and three of them bled such major gushers that the EMTs hit the ring as a shoot, and they didn't smarten them up. They just went with it and sold as if it was so. Like they said, they were treating us as if we were like about to die, so we just let them and sold it like we were about to die. And the EMTs weren't smartened up, and they just went along with it. So yeah, that was the extent of just how horrific apparently a beating. I couldn't find that, but I'm sure it's out there somewhere. A beating that they put on Randy Hill, so that's why they were getting revenge on them here. And I suppose while I'm telling quick stories from Ricky Morton, he also said that when they were working together during this feud, they had one match where Jamie had spent the whole night before and the whole day of just absolutely off his face. So just being out drinking and everything. And at one point they're getting the heat on him, and Rick's like, "We're doing a great number on him, and man, we're kicking him, you guys stomping him on hole," whatever he's saying. And he Jamie bails out of the ring, goes under the apron, and he starts throwing up. And Robert pulls off Wolfie, and he's like, "Your pussy partner's throwing up under the ring." And Ricky goes out, grabs Jamie, and he says, "I say to him, I'm 47 years old. I haven't slept in 35 years. Get your ass in this ring."
And Jamie probably said, "Yes, sir."
He did. Ricky, his exact words were, "Tough little bastard. He just got right back in there. He got, in fairness to him, he got back at it. Went to work."
I love it. I don't care if it's true. I want to believe it.
Yeah.
But yeah, so this match, as Lance explains to us, is a Texas step match. So the falls count, but it doesn't matter how many falls you get. It's all about who can't enter the 10 count. So every time there's a fall, there's a 30-second rests period, and then we get the 10 count. So not only does Lance explain this to us, he also has to explain it every time there's a pinfall to Corey Macklin on commentary.
Or Corey just every Texas Death Match from this era and these territories I've ever seen, every fall it gets explained, regardless of promotion, regardless of commentator, and every time they explain it, I have the same reaction, Lee, and that is, I think there's at least one unnecessary layer to this whole in them for a 3, 30-second count, 10-second count. Can we eliminate one of these sets of counts? Maybe.
Yeah.
Would that just speed the process along a little bit?
But yeah, so Corey has to have this explained to him every time. Even when he's on the house mic talking to the fans and explaining that there's a 30-second rest count, you hear Lance constantly in the background going, 15 seconds! And telling Corey he has to tell the crowd how long is left. But yeah, well, apart from the hilariousness with the commentators, this match is just wild. Like you've kind of started explaining it there as you're watching in the background.
The ring is just soaked in all kinds of like garbage and liquids, and I don't eat blood and water and probably beer, and there's broken tables. There's powder, like bodily fluids. This thing is just a mess, Lee.
There's powder, there's chains, there's hubcaps, there's blood.
Multiple powders, probably.
Maybe Jamie was getting sick under the ring. We don't know. I mean, it's just insane for the absolute spectacle that it is. There's also the thickest damn table I think I've ever seen in around a wrestling ring. I was terrified when they put this thing into the ring, Alan.
Yeah, sturdy, all right. It was. This was the Daisuke Sekimoto of tables.
And then we see them doing spots on and off of the table. It's
Yeah,
just
Ricky just took a backdrop. They were setting up a pile driver on the table, and Ricky he gets backdropped and lands like tailbone first. Oh, it looked rough.
But yeah, we get multiple pinfalls. You know, the guys kind of make the count, or make it up to their feet after the count. I think Morton is bleeding. Wolfie is bleeding. I think by the end of the segment, Jamie is also bleeding. So we get multiple run-ins. First of all, we get Mark Curtis back out with some water to revive Ricky Morton after I think he took a pair of DDTs on the aforementioned thick-ass table. So then we get Curtis is fought off to the back by, I think they say Bill Rush, who I think is one of the other Memphis referees.
Yeah, I wasn't sure about that one.
Yeah,
the big celebration, the crowd go wild, and then Jamie fires. Like, that's the cue for Jamie to fire up, and he just starts throwing the best punches you've ever seen at Ricky Morton. At that moment, it was so good. It was honestly one of the best moments I've seen of Jamie Dundee. Right after Curtis gets ejected.
That's actually something we haven't brought up. These guys throw those Memphis punches.
Oh yeah.
They are so good. Like, again, something that's missing in modern day wrestling that I'll always bemoan is the lack of actual punches. Everyone just does forearms now. We need more guys to start learning the art of throwing a punch.
Unless you're a veteran European wrestler. It's always European wrestlers for whatever reason. A veteran European wrestler who is of similar age to us, who grew up as a teenager in the early 2000s. Then you throw rock punches. I've noticed this phenomenon. I've pointed out this phenomenon. This is the thing, Lee. Any 39 to 45-year-old worker in Europe throws rock punches, and you know what I mean by rock punches.
I know, I can see them, and I can see people that I know do them, and it's now annoying me just thinking about it. Oh God, bring back the fucking working punch, for God's sake.
You remember Leon Van Gasteren from your going to WXW days?
No, it could have been before my time.
Yeah, he was. He was a notorious rock punch guy who I found a recent match of. Like, wow, Leon Van Gaster. I haven't watched him in years, and he was throwing those rock punches. I was celebrating. I was like, "You go, Leon!" Just a picture of as a 14-year-old being like, "Yeah, I'm gonna be a wrestler when I grow up, and I'm gonna be like just like The Rock." So many of them.
Throwing those rock punches at his bedroom wall, learning how to throw them properly.
Yeah. Yep.
Oh God. Anyway, we get so PG-13 are just going to town on the rock and rolls of the hubcaps, like literally just sitting on their chests, pounding their heads in with the hubcaps, and we get Buddy Landell making a run in for the save. Then we get Lawler out. Big pop for that. The close of the match, we see a spike pile driver on Ricky Morton by PG-13. But Tracy Smothers comes in, and even though he's a Smoky Mountain guy, Lance tries to sell it like this is the ultimate betrayal because Tracy comes in and breaks a bottle on Jamie's head.
Well, I think Tracy hadn't. I think Tracy had only kind of opposed these guys as a babyface in Smoky. So in USWA land,
he was still babyface Tracy.
He was still babyface Tracy. I don't know if he had been there in a while, but he was still considered a good guy. Like Lance even talks about how he's a good old Southern boy or something like that. He's a good, nice young man and something like that. But then he so this was him. Just basically, I'm sure it was a case of he was now going to start being a part of the feud on both sides, so they had to kind of turn him properly on the because they could easily enough do it with the Rock and Roll Express, because I think the Rock and Rolls had maybe done some heel stuff in Memphis before or whatever it might have been. But yeah, they he turns and Jamie ends up getting He ends up getting the count put to him, and a great sell of Wolfie and Lawler standing over Jamie trying to revive him, and he wasn't budging.
I love that they have to answer the 10 count, but nobody can touch them. You can't help them to their feet.
Yeah.
It's a real one of those wrestling things that only makes sense to wrestling fans. But yeah, so Jamie can't answer the bell, and that's our finish. We get Tracy grabbing the mic afterwards and telling the USWA they can stick it. So that brings us to our last match in this feud. It's from the Mid-South Coliseum. It's PG-13 taking on the team of Tracy Smothers and Terry Gordy.
Yeah. And it was only about halfway through this match I was like, oh wait, this is post Bad Things Terry Gordy.
Yeah.
I was saying this, I was like, man, Terry Gordy, he's just so good. Look how crisp everything he does is. And I was like, wait, this is the era where he's like terrible.
Mm-hmm.
I was like, no, I thought he was good in this match.
He's good until the angle at the end where he just looks lost.
He looks
and
a bit lost.
So bad.
Yeah,
I feel so bad for him. Like this guy shouldn't have been wrestling. But hey, look, he's here and he's fine in the match. So again, similar to what we'd seen before. So this segment starts with one of my least favorite people in all of wrestling, Jesse James, in the arena with Lance, and Lance throws to this video package. James is obviously representing, or he's Jesse James Armstrong here, isn't he? He's representing Smoky Mountain Wrestling.
Yeah.
And yeah, we throw the highlights from this match. And yeah, it's just the closing of a Mid-South Coliseum match that we've seen this kind of thing before from the TV show.
I take it for any reason other than just the names I saw, and I was like, oh, Gordy against these guys, what would that look like? And yeah, it was short. It was like, but I thought like a lot of the stuff in it looked really good. There was a couple of absolutely just such sweet, awesome DDTs from Tracy throws one, and then one of PG-13 throw the other. Just if you want to see perfectly executed DDTs, DDTs were all the rage in the mid 90s, like ECW. Like think if you watch an ECW show in 1995, you meant DDTs you'd see, but you saw a couple of good ones here. Tracy was fantastic during the 7 or 8 minutes we see of this match.
Yeah, look, anytime you see Tracy in this era, it's always going to be good.
His heel dance on display.
He did. I did love, again, we talked about his athleticism at the start of the show. We haven't had much to talk about recently, but we see Wolfie bust out a moonsault here. I mean, it wasn't picture perfect, but fair dues to him. He's a big guy getting up there and doing a moonsault press. So we see Gordy hits a pile driver on Wolfie, and before he can go for the pin, JC sneaks in and hits Smothers with a hubcap, and that's PG-13 regaining the USWA tag team titles. But their victory is short-lived, as is classic USWA TV, or classic USWA booking, I should say. The Heavenly Bodies and Tracy Smothers together beat down on PG-13, and it's just, again, a heavy heat angle, to the point that we get Randy Hales at ringside telling the guys from Smoky Mountain if they touch PG-13 again, they're all going to be suspended.
It's very much your inexperienced secondary school teacher making this is your last warning threat to a rowdy group of second year.
Yeah, so they all basically say, well, fuck you, and decide to just beat up on them some more. And that's kind of the club we come back to, Jesse James lamenting all his guys being suspended for the week. That was basically the premise of the angle. Yeah, I thought this match was good. Like I say, it's not the best one on the list, but yeah, I thought Tracy in particular was really a bright spot in this match.
Yep, for sure. And yeah, that's all of PWG or PWG. What do I keep doing?
PWG.
PG-13. PG-13. At home down south as local heroes or hated villains. But in 1997, they go up north with a little detour in, of course, the WWF where we had seen them previously. We don't have anything that I specifically wanted to watch here, but I think we need to spend a few minutes on the fact that they were, of course, the rappers of the Nation of Domination. You got a little example of such when we started the show, but yeah, what was your were they guys that you noticed really in the Nation days, Lee?
Oh yeah, I knew them from like when the Nation was a thing, and they were identified as such as PG-13, even though they were in the Nation. But yeah, I definitely remember them. Like they were guys that basically just got beat up. I don't recall them ever winning any matches from their Nation run. I'm sure they probably did on kind of the
I don't think
weekend
so. I
shows or
think they
whatever.
really only I think the big thing was just getting squashed by LOD.
But yeah, no, I definitely remember them from their Nation run. And as we see in these next couple of matches, we're going to talk about their ECW run. The fans don't let them forget because there's constant Nation chants or NOD or whatever they're shouting at them. So
They were
yeah, like
shouting lots of things at them.
yes, they
and
were.
and
It's a mid
PG-13
'90s ECW crowd.
PG-13 were firing back and a staple of their. So okay, there's we've two matches here
Mm.
which are both tags versus Mikey and Spike. We don't really need to go into huge detail on like either of them, but I suppose just it was Mikey and Spike they were paired up with for essentially their whole run in ECW, with the exception of they do the one pay-per-view match at Hardcore Heaven where they wrestled with Dudleys. And um the Mikey Spike matches are kind of super heralded amongst your um uh, a lot of the Segunda Caída people, pro wrestling only people who were involved in the ECW fan cam project, where they were basically going through all the old fan cam stuff to find sort of hidden gem matches. Um, I watched a couple of them. I picked out this one because I thought the setting was fun, but honestly, there is a couple of better. There's one in Boston or somewhere in Massachusetts that's really, really good. I think it's a couple of days before or after this one. Um, but this is one here where they wrestle Mikey and Spike at the Extreme Beach Party in Belmar, New Jersey on June 29th, 1997. And if you want to close your eyes and think of what a June 1997 New Jersey beach party with an ECW show in the midst of it would look like, it's pretty spot on, Lee. Was this around the time you went to New Jersey, or were you at the
No,
show?
yeah, it was me and Joe Lanza there together. Yeah. No, I wasn't in New Jersey until 2002. Um, Famously, I was there for when SummerSlam '02 was on, and
That's
Shawn
right.
Michaels'
Yeah,
big
yeah.
return, and I was literally 40 minutes away from the venue, but just wasn't allowed to go as I was only 16 years of age, and you know, one of them things. But
You didn't
I'm not.
say
I'm
that
not.
show. That show, nothing important happened on that show. It was a
No,
nothing show.
I'm not bitter.
No doubt.
I'm not bitter. I'm not bitter. But no, Belmar, New Jersey. I was down on the New Jersey coast, so it's possible I was in this location and wasn't aware. But yeah, no, I am not a huge ECW fan cam watcher. I do enjoy this era of ECW. I'm one of those rare ones that likes kind of what's called post peak ECW. I enjoy that. That's the era I grew up on. But I'm not a huge fan of the fan cams for whatever reason. I struggle to get into watching them sometimes. So I wasn't aware that this was a thing.
Because
I thought
Gabe is just not steady with that camera. Steady that stuff, Gabe. Come on. Gabe was not on the cameraman for this one, because we see Gabe walking past the camera at one point. I don't know if you
oh,
spotted
I didn't spot
young,
that. No.
young Gabe Sapolsky, right at the
Uh,
end of the match.
but no, I thought the setting was definitely unique for an ECW show. The crowd is definitely an ECW crowd, and I will say that Jamie in particular definitely matched their energy.
Yeah, threw it right back. So their shtick that they had in when they're in ECW as heels, basically their usual heel shtick. A lot of the gay baiting and that kind of stuff, but also a huge dose of "you guys are Yankees, the South will rise again." heat.
Yeah.
And yeah, they would, and he would do a thing before, like pretty much every match where it would say, "We're so confident we're gonna win. If we lose," Jamie would say this, "If we lose, I will kiss every single person in this crowd." And then they'd start yelling back at me, go, "Hell, you know what? I'm so confident. If we win, I will suck every dick in this crowd." And then at the end, or no, he would, sorry, very, very important point, he would say, "We will suck every dick in this crowd." And then they'd invariably lose all of these matches. And then Wolfie at the end of the match would be like, "I ain't sucking no dick." And Jamie would be like, "Come on, we have to." And Jamie would start looking like he wanted to. And then the crowd would give him heat for that because, like, "Oh, look, he actually wants to." And then, yeah, so that was basically like, that was their shtick they would do. And then Jamie would be like, "Yeah," and then he'd bail and he wouldn't do it. And then the cool little thing he threw in here at the end, which I never saw him do on any of the others, was the crowd are giving him shit. It's all part of the whole act, and then he just kind of smiles and gets on the mic. Screw it, I'll buy you all a beer, and the crowd cheer. And then he looks at one guy and he's like, "Dumbass, I ain't buying you no beer. Get out of here." Just fantastic.
I will say is, I think this is, when I think PG-13, yeah, this is what I'm thinking. This is like the ideal. I think they are so suited to this kind of, like, what would you call it? Shit talking heels that can never back up their words. I will say, I was just going to bring that up. I think the pairing with Jason is fucking brilliant. I love it. It's like not what you would expect at all. I think it's perfect. And like we see, if you watch the episode of Hardcore TV, I think it's Hardcore TV number 220, where we see again PG-13 taking on Mikey and Spike, and Jason comes from under the ring. Yeah. Joey Styles is absolutely, disgusted and doing his like anti-Jason thing. I was just like watching it in tears.
Rick Rude was like, I think it was this. Rick Rude was, when he sees Jason, he's like, "You stealing my gimmick?"
Yeah. Oh God. It's just, this is like I say, I think this is just a great era of ECW. I just have very fun. Anytime I watch it, I just have great fun. But yeah, so these matches with Spike and Mikey, both matches very similar. I think the crowd interaction on the beach show match, obviously we see that full match. The ECW arena match that we see is heavily clipped, but like, you could hold these matches up against each other, and I'm pretty sure beat for beat they're going to be the same match. I love PG-13 in this kind of role. Like,
watch the if you get a chance, Lee, when you've kind of want to take a bit of a break, digest all this PG-13 you've watched in 6 months, go and watch I think it's June 20th, but the Massachusetts match.
Okay.
It's I would say, just from in terms of action, it's probably the best PG-13 match I've seen.
I think I can say now, considering this is the last real match we're going to cover, I have fully turned the corner on PG-13. Like, you have absolutely won me around with this playlist. I think they are great as this kind of bumping, shit-talking heels. Like, the bit that Jamie does where he can't slam Mikey. Like, just an absolute great pro wrestling house show bit. I was just watching it going, oh God, this is so good.
Yeah. And they always do the thing where they fall out with each other as well, and that would always work well in ECW. And like, Jamie would be pouting and keep blaming Wolfie for something, and yeah, it's fantastic.
And again, I'm going to jump between the matches, like from the ECW arena match where I think it's Mikey grabs Jamie by the balls, and Rick Rude calls it the Baron von Bobbitt claw. And then we get a jump cut to Jamie sitting at the announcer's table, or the ringside announcer's table, and he grabs the mic and he's putting on the high pitched voice, going, "He grabbed my balls! He grabbed my balls!" And I was just like, yes, these guys just understand how to work a crowd. And like, they're what, 3 years, 4 years into the gimmick. It's just so good. And I miss guys like this. Like, this is what I miss in wrestling. Just guys that will go out and work to the crowd and give the crowd what they want. These guys know they're not main event in the show, but they don't care. They're not out here.
Ricky Morton said it best on another thing when he was talking to, I'm sure he said this a million places, but he said to Wolfie, he was like, when they were just talking about how well it all worked and how effective it was, he was like, we had fun. We had a lot of fun, but we took it seriously. We were professional. We knew what we were doing. We knew what we wanted to do, and we took it seriously. Now, that slightly goes against the story about Jamie Dundee getting sick under the ring after being out all day and Ricky Morton not having got bed in 35 years, but you get what he means. And it's like there's an approach to the business and their performance that these guys of this era had that, I don't think they held themselves to a standard in a way that I think the standards are different nowadays and people lose sight of certain standards while at the same time trying to reach other standards that maybe aren't. There was really great qualities in what these guys were about, and yeah, they had the 80s mindset in a lot of ways and applied it to a 90s venue so perfectly, whether it was down south or up north in ECW, and yeah, they just fit in. They could have had a 4 or 5 year run in ECW no problem and been effective and probably turned face and been in feuds. They could have done so much there. It's a big what if that they didn't have a bigger ECW run.
I think that like what we've seen throughout the list of matches we've gone through here is they just have great adaptability, and that's almost a lost art in some modern day wrestlers where they can't adapt to different roles. But like we've seen them here as fiery baby faces, we've seen them as hated heels, we've seen them as stooging heels, playing off the crowd. We've seen it all from these guys, and again, kudos to you. You've absolutely won me around on these guys. Just again, like we're kind of breezing through these two matches because there's not a ton to say.
There's not. I have nothing else to. I'm itching to talk about this promo that they cut when they go back down to the USWA, and despite when they were in ECW talking about how all they want to do is go back down south and just ripping up the ECW fans, ECW wrestlers, they go back down south and these guys are wearing all the ECW merch under the sun. They're talking about all our ECW friends, the Sandman, Tommy Dreamer. They're talking about their ECW family, and yeah, it's completely showing the other side of it when they go back home, and just working their time in ECW into a heel turn at home in Memphis.
Fantastic. This was obviously during the Lawler invasion. The Lawler invasion into ECW, and then ECW guys would come down to Memphis. So we're seeing the other side of PG-13 in the invasion angle here, except they're on the other side now. In Memphis, and just really good stuff. But we're going to close out with this match. This is IWA Mid-South from 1997. It's PG-13 taking on the team of Ox Hardy, and Madman Pondo. I mean, this isn't much of a match. Look, we're not going to talk about that. This is all about
the match which we watched on YouTube as someone recorded this match on their TV while they're like having a conversation with someone in the background.
Yeah, a phone rings and like they're having a full blown conversation. But this match is all about the shoot fight that breaks out in the middle, like very quickly into the match. So this is, typical IWA Mid-South Fair. Ian Rotten's at ringside. PG-13 are here, they're heels, they're kind of playing it up. And the match is just, these guys are going to hit each other and nobody's going to sell a thing. Like, I don't think anybody registers even one hit of anything before, well, all four guys are outside. There's this kind of, I'm assuming it's supposed to be like a club or is it like a baseball bat or something?
So this basically all centers around, like, it's all normal enough. Jamie's a worker, Mama Pondo's a worker, Wolfie's a worker, but Wolfie can handle himself. And this Ox Harley guy, I don't know much about him, but he clearly was a dope, shall we say?
Not smart, I think is the best way to say it. In many senses, maybe.
In many senses. And he pisses Wolfie off very quickly in this match and then proceeds to piss him off more. And Wolfie, you could tell, gives a look that is of the, what the fuck? What are you doing? If you do something like that again, there's going to be a problem. And this advice given through this glare was not heeded by Ox Harley. And we should point out, as I'm putting this on to remind myself, the referee is that Honky Tonk Man, it seems.
What?
So put it on there in the background, Lee, and tell me that referee is the Honky Tonk Man.
No, I remember the referee, and I was like, "That's not Wayne Ferris."
Well, that hairstyle was clearly in vogue in Kentucky in 1997, I guess.
Alan, it's Kentucky. I'm not saying too much, but
So, I'm loading up the part here now, our key part. So, okay.
But see, for me, it's Wolfie has this kind of club or bat, whatever it is, and Pondo is kind of registering the hits, but this Harley guy is just not selling anything, and Wolfie throws another shot, and Harley goes to grab the bat, and it's Harley that throws the first punch. I want to make that clear. He's the one that instigates the fight, as far as we can see.
Yeah.
And these guys, kind of dance around ringside. Harley's still, putting it up to Wolfie. Wolfie's not backing down. He's throwing his fair share of fists. But Ian very quickly, we see Ian kind of run off shot, waving to the back, trying to get people out to break this up. And it's once they get back into the ring, it like you said, Pondo and Jamie are very much workers. They're willing to, continue on the work. But Harley gets back in the ring and proceeds to want to still fight for whatever reason. And what amazed me is, I wasn't aware of this, like you've brought it up a couple of times. Wolfie can handle himself. He absolutely hands fucking Harley his ass because he batters him with a couple of unanswered shots. And that's the end of it all.
Yep. It's you can see kind of it's a gradual thing with Harley not selling stuff and acting like he's getting pissed at Wolfie, like he's gonna be the big man or whatever. And Wolfie, and then he hits Wolfie with a stiff weapon. And you can see Wolfie getting angrier and angrier, and you can see Ian even knowing something's. Ian starts to approach it, kind of looking like something might be a bit off here. And Ox Hardy, I should point out, is wearing a parental advisory shirt on the front, and on the back it says "Respect me or kiss my ass," which is very clearly it's a T-shirt that's been brought to a print shop, and this has been now they have just started actually like boxing stances, throwing legit boxing shots at each other, and that's when Ian runs. Wolfie's putting his chin out. Wolfie's putting his chin out, daring, and Ox is like proper throwing jabs.
He's trying to swing at him, and Wolfie's just evading him. Like
he's evading. I think Wolfie's even taken a few. Wolfie's even taken a few, like letting him hit him right in the chin, full force, and Wolfie's just standing there knowing he can take a shot, which is like obviously in a fight that's like you can hit me full on and I'm not even gonna blink.
Yeah.
That's like a real. So Wolfie just comes across like this toughest motherfucker that you do not. A Samoan hits the ring. I don't know. Is that
Yeah. Who the
Samu? It sure looks like Samu. um, and
because
Jesus, if I'm
a couple of guys that come in seem to start their own angles just to kind of distract from what's going on.
yeah, that really looks like Samu. And Jesus Christ, if you have a situation in the ring, if you're like promoter Ian Runn, yeah, if you want to sort that shit out, it's like, well, get Samu out there. That'll do
Yeah,
it.
listen. If you have a Samoan in your locker room, they're not a bad guy to call out if somebody wants to start shooting.
Yeah, for sure. But yeah, they try to restart it and all of it. Yeah, it's a whole funny, hilarious, ridiculous thing.
Just
That's
absolutely
definitely
ridiculous.
worth
But
watching.
I definitely do. Yeah, definitely agree. It's worth watching, and as you said, a great example that no doubt many times Kelly Wolf had to prove his toughness to defend Jamie, and not only himself, but also something stupid that Jamie would have done over the years. But yeah, no, props to Wolfie, because that's obviously a tough ass guy.
Yep, yep. And
But yeah,
yeah,
that's the end of our playlists. So yeah, so like I said, you've won me around. I'm now a fully fledged on board PG-13 fan.
welcome to the team.
I don't know why. Maybe it's just as I've gotten older, what I look for in wrestling is now different to what I would have enjoyed previously. But yeah, no, definitely well worth watching any of these matches that you can find. And yeah, so thank you, Alan, for joining me here, for filling in for Dave. Before you go, obviously plug your show or shows. What have you got coming up?
Thank you very much, Lee. It was my pleasure, first of all, to be on here. Really enjoyed um coming in. I thought we were going to be initially when you offered me to do this, I thought I would be having to review an episode of Thunder from the year 2000, and uh I was going to be a brave soldier and go into the foxhole with you and endure that. But when you told me I didn't have to, it was quite the relief. I will leave that mighty task to you and Dave um,
Mm-hmm.
when he returns. But it was a pleasure to be here on the Days of Thunder and get the rub from you guys. And yeah, I will. If anyone wants to go and check out what I do and go into the archives and see shows I have done in the past with Lee and with Dave, you can do that at PW Torch VIP, as I mentioned. Um, you might not be able to find the show I did with Fake Lee and Fake Dave, or Invisible Lee and Invisible Dave, but you will find ones I did with the actual versions of themselves, talking 80s New Japan, talking Bret Hart, talking 2002 WWF Draft. What else have I talked with the guys about?
Paul Orndorff. We did a great Paul
Paul
Orndorff show.
the Paul Orndorff show. Yes. And we talked about wasn't it a 2000 ECW show as well? We did, Lee, I think, on the
Yes,
same
we did.
show as
Yeah,
the
yeah. Uh-huh.
same show as the New Japan. So yeah, we've talked about a wild array of things, and you can check out those shows I've done with the guys. You can check out all the other shows. We've got the 34L30 season, which wrapped up in December series, I should say, which wrapped up in December. That was 30 episodes, with 30 great guests, about 30 of my favorite episodes. That's where I did the Brett show with Lee, but there's so many shows in there that were just such a pleasure to do. And yeah, the most recent show I've just done, depending on when this is released, will have been my new series, which is called the "Don't You Forget About Me" series, where we talk about some just uh, wrestlers who, as time goes by, might be in danger of kind of getting forgotten or not being talked about very much. And if it's for one of the last times, we try to shine a light on them and yeah, give listeners a bit of an idea of who they were, what they were all about, and I'll have had a new episode of that just posted at the end of March with myself just going solo and talking about Makoto Hashi from Pro Wrestling Noah. So those will kind of be shorter, snappier shows than the 34L30 shows, not as in-depth, but just trying to shine light on some guys, and I'll be doing some of those with guests, some of them solo, and it'll be a bit of a mix. But yeah, that's really all the plugs. I'm not really on social media all that much anymore. I post the odd bit on Blue Sky. I have pretty much kicked the Twitter habit. I occasionally go in there to check my DMs. If you send me DMs on Twitter, I don't get back to you for like 10 days. It's because I forgot to check my DMs. So thankfully, I'm pretty much never on there. And last time I logged in there, I had about 54 notifications. I was like, oh dear, what's kicked off with me included? And then it's just all these like suggests. So it's a thing now. I guess you get notifications.
Oh, you get suggestions.
Suggested tweets. And I was like, I don't care about any of this bullshit. I do not want to read a single one of these things. So done with Twitter. But you might find me on Blue Sky. But if I see something that I find hugely entertaining, like a GIF or a video clip or something, I might post it up there. And otherwise you can keep up with me on the show. I'm on the Voice Wrestling Discord a lot, so that's probably where I do most of my internet posting these days. So I suppose that is social media. So yeah, that's where I'd be usually talking about wrestling.
That's where I see you the most these days, is the old school channel in the Voice of Wrestling Discord. Great channel.
There's many good channels in there. Old School, Dragon Gate, New Japan. Oh, sorry, wait, no, New Japan. That great now.
That's not a good channel.
the New Japan one's a bit heavy-handed, shall we say? But some of the other Japan ones are pretty good. The All Japan one's good. Shout out to Gerard. It's a fun place to chat about wrestling, and lots of good people on there to talk to. So chilling in my old age in there, Lee.
Yeah, that's hey. Listen, I'm your brother. I'm done with Twitter. I don't post to Blue Sky.
I will leave. I will leave the fiery social media fights to the youngsters and Rovers.
Mm-hmm. Listen, Rovert's still going strong. None will stop him. But thank you so much for joining me. This has been an absolute hoot, as it always is. Anytime we get a chance to record with yourself. And this has been Days of Thunder. I will be back in 2 weeks' time with another special guest for another special edition show, which may or may not be the last one before Dave returns. We don't know yet. But I will also be back 1 week from now with another show on the Patreon. That's alargemanappears.com or patreon.com/Days of Thunder, where we have a extensive back catalogue over the past couple of years. We have pay-per-view previews. We have many of our series, like the Dragon Star series. We have our Rehash of the Champion series. We have Days of Thunder at the movies. So many hours of content there for just €5. But yeah, thank you all for listening, and I will be back with you all real soon. Good night.
Thanks everyone for listening to another episode of Days of Thunder. Days of Thunder was produced by Lee Malone and edited by me, Dave Ryan. To keep up to date with the show and find all the ways to listen to us, you can follow us on Twitter at WCW ThunderPod or click the Linktree link in our Twitter bio or in the show notes. I am at The Day to Dave on Twitter and Lee is at Malone_713. Days of Thunder is a part of the Voices of Wrestling podcast network. Follow the VOW network anywhere good podcasts are sold for more fine podcasts than you can shake a stick at. Thanks.
I can hear the thunder. Hey kids, do you like wrestling? Well, we like wrestling too. We are Shake Them Ropes here on the Voices of Wrestling Podcasting Network. Myself and Chris Novembrino kind of doing a lazy river of wrestling criticism, going through the news and whatever happened in stateside television wrestling. And also, you know what? Sometimes we just like to watch old stuff and talk about that too. Love for you to give us a listen. If you haven't already, we are Shake Them Ropes here on the Voices of Wrestling Podcasting Network.